You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, everybody. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, and thank you for joining us here on this beautiful Monday morning here in Chicago. It is July 17th, and we have I think we have an interesting show here this morning. At least I hope we do. And so what I want to do is go over the rundown here on some of the issues that we'll be talking about today. At the Catholic Conference, we've been pretty busy with a lot of issues pending out of Springfield, so we haven't been able to do the show for the last month, I think, or two. But we hopefully get back on track now as we approach the fall, as we're going to be working on more issues that we will be talking about today. So here we are on WNDZ. This is 7:50 a.m. and here out of Chicago, which I know the signal goes all over the Midwest region. So you can not only listen to our program, but you can see it and view it today on YouTube. But so let me do this. Let me go over the lineup here this morning and get to our first guest. So the first guest, we're going to be talking about recent developments out of the Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court made a lot of big decisions recently, released a lot of big decisions, and one of them was something called the 303 Creative. They're referring to the case as 303 Creative. We're going to be talking just in a second here with former state rep and now, I don't know what his title is. He's General Counsel, Executive VP, I think it is, at Thomas More Society. Peter Breen's going to be with us here just in a second. And then we're going to jump to the Scholarship Tax Credit Program issue, something that we've been working on long and hard in Springfield, and we still have more work to do. And we're going to be talking to Tamari Karam. She is with a school called Kingswood Academy, and she's going to talk about the impact that this program has on her school and her ability to afford kids a scholarship so they can attend a non-public school. And then finally, we're going to be wrapping up with somebody who's been on this program before, Ralph Rivera. And he's going to be talking about an impending issue that we're dealing with in Springfield, probably in the veto session and most likely for next year. And it's an issue that's familiar to many of the people watching and listening to this program. It's physician-assisted suicide. We've talked about it before. And Ralph will kind of fill us in with some of the details about some of the initiatives we've been working on this summer. So let's do this. Without further ado, let's jump right into our first guest, talk to our first guest here. He is Peter Breen. He is, as I said, he's a former state representative from the Lombard-Glen Ellen area, and he is now the executive VP at Thomas More Society. Peter, can you hear me?
Hey, I've got you, Bob. Sure.
Hey, good. Thank you for getting bright and early here. I know you're up bright and early anyway, but joining us here for a couple minutes on this beautiful Monday morning to talk about this recent U.S. Supreme Court case called, I think it's referred to commonly as 303 Creative, if I'm not mistaken. So Peter, let's just kind of maybe go over the highlights of the case, if you could kind of walk us through what the controversy was. It was Lori Smith, I believe, is the woman's name, and she had a business doing some websites, and she did not want to express certain messages as part of her business. That was kind of the crux of the case, right?
Well, and that was, it's something that's continued to come up in front of the Supreme Court over these past few years. We saw, the Masterpiece Cake Shop a case out of Colorado, and this one also comes out of Colorado. In part because if you're in this space, you know that the Colorado civil rights authorities are particularly vicious, if anything, in coming after Christians who do not want to be involved in in sorts of work, expressive work that would violate their sincere faith tradition. So this case was one where you've got a website designer, Ms. Smith, and then the 303 Creative Company. And she made very clear, and the parties actually stipulated to a lot of the important facts below. So there wasn't a lot of dispute at the Supreme Court about well, did she really do this or did she really do that? None of it mattered because the parties really, the facts were undisputed. So it made it easier for the High Court to give a clean answer on this. 6-3 decision, and it was really upholding her right not to be forced to give a message that she sincerely disagreed with. And so that it's as simple as that. And so you'd sit there and go, well, of course, isn't this the United States of America? Aren't we supposed to have these rights guaranteed? Well, we know over these years that when it comes to things like abortion or, LGBT issues, state governments and sometimes federal government are more apt to try to force you to speak their message or support their message. And so this was a great victory for founding, democratic principles of the country, and really just for a reiteration of something that we all knew to be true in our hearts, but that had been very much at threat by state governments like Colorado's or Illinois, or sometimes hostile federal governments.
She actually affirmatively took this case to court, though. If my understanding of the fact pattern was that she was not being forced to do this yet. I think she did it sort of preemptively. Is that true?
Well, and that's really, when we're talking to our clients about how to get to court, you want to get to court before the state comes after you. And so what she did was sought declaratory relief that I want to do wedding websites, except I am a very solid Christian. I will not. And she made websites of all types before this, but she really didn't. She wasn't in the wedding website business, and so that's a very unique subset. You and I went through this a long time ago, Bob, but I can't even imagine newlyweds or newlyweds to be today trying to pick all these vendors and things like this. So that was what she wanted to do, expand her business into that. But she had a kind of a constant policy, no matter what. Even before the wedding side, she wasn't going to put together a website that didn't, that violated her sincere beliefs. Something, crazy or satanic or unduly violent or what have you. And she wasn't going to help that.
But
and
yet,
so here,
my understanding is
this meant that she would be affirming marriages between a man and a woman. Period. And so that went to court for declaratory relief on that point. And that was part of why we were able to get all the facts stipulated below. So that was, in the trial court, there weren't really any, disputed facts or things because, no one had complained. She just, she said, hey, I want to defend my right to do this. And again, that made it easier for this case to make it to the High Court and for the Supreme Court to really speak strongly and clearly that when you're talking about speech that is her own speech, and so that was a point that needed to be made. This is her own speech. It's not you're not a mere scribe for a for a client. I mean, when you're creating, adding your own creative work to a product, even if there's some other people's speech involved, it's your own speech. And so that's a very clear place where the First Amendment comes into play. And the Supreme Court, it was Justice Gorsuch. He weaved together a lot of cases that have come down over the past 20 years to really bring forward this conclusion here. And he both, I don't want to say they broke new ground, but to some extent they really they reaffirmed ground that shouldn't have been at risk but was, and almost, if anything, breathed really new robustness into those cases that had been decided. So the Dale, the Boy Scouts case. So that was where the Boy Scouts were able to exclude openly homosexual scoutmasters. The case about the Hurley, which was the out of Boston, I think it was out of Boston, out of the Northeast, the St. Patrick's Day parade did not want to have an LGBT float.
Right.
All of those sorts of cases that certainly we toss them around in the First Amendment context. In Snyder v. Phelps, which was a offensive speech, very offensive speech. We toss these around, but once they look great when they come from the Supreme Court, but then they go back down to the district courts, and people are always trying to find ways around them. Well, the Supreme Court here took those traditional precedents and really reaffirmed them. Said, no, we meant what we said when we said those things. And, it's a really huge victory for free speech, but also for religious liberty, because we're the people of faith are the ones whose speech is being restricted at this time.
But like you said, it was this free speech case. It wasn't a religious liberties case. It was a free speech case.
Well, and that's, it's an interesting point, because I know it's uncomfortable sometimes that we as people of faith are asserting our rights, our constitutional rights, really under more free speech than under, say, free exercise of religion. And so I do know sometimes, I'm dealing with clients even, they'll say, well, this is about my freedom of religion. Well, yes, but it's also even more fundamentally the fact that, when you're expressing your religious beliefs, it's broader. So under our constitutional system, it's the same as someone wanting to express their opinion about, a favored political candidate, or express their opinion about any sort of an issue of great public concern. And so the principles being laid out at the end of the day turn out to be broader. And I might say, when you're not having to focus solely on the religious freedom right, you're creating better law, broader law that we're able to come under. So it's like a protective. It's very much protective for us, people of faith, but it protects everybody. And I might even say, when you establish a right under free speech, and now I'm going to spitball a little bit here, Bob, but I think when you establish something under the free speech clause, you get a much broader segment of Americans that are necessarily going to support you, because you're not just relying
religious
on your fellow people of faith.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Because when you go under the free exercise clause, obviously, that's the first freedom. The people came to this country because they were being religiously persecuted in their home countries. But even so, that free speech right being broader, it's something where, at least if you're trying to both get a court consensus and a political consensus, of the people of the country, you really you do well when you get those free speech rights expanded.
I want to talk a little bit about now the ramifications of this. There was a website designer who, I think the fact pattern is she served people who were LGBTQ. She didn't have a problem with that. It was when we got into the violating of her speech right as it related to weddings and things like that. So now where does this go? I've read there's speculation now that this decision could be used to contest a lot of the requirements that are going on in corporate America about the DIE stuff, the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, and all that kind of thing. How do you see this playing out now that this case is out there? Do you think this is going to have any impact on other aspects of things that, as you indicated, the government has been forcing us to do? Or like another example could be like, a public accommodation law. You have to now are all of those laws that we've had to live under now, are they suspect? Could you have a free speech challenge to them under the 303 Creative?
I would say this. Certainly. So we just had our cue. Last question was about, well, is it better to be free speech or free exercise? What's the confusion? At the same time, I want to, as much as this is a free speech decision, people who are watching the religiously related cases of the Supreme Court over the past, say, 10 years or so, are watching in nearly every term some religion-related right is being reaffirmed or affirmed. Every single term, pretty much you get another one and another one and another one. And every time a religious person comes before the Supreme Court, where the court actually takes the case and adjudicates it, they're winning. So for state civil rights laws, public accommodations laws like the one in Colorado, if you have a sincere religious objection that you can express as a speech, it's because it's a speech-related topic. I mean, those are very much at risk right now. But I would say this, in 303 Creative, and you alluded to this, they made clear that 303 Creative would serve a person who, of any sexual orientation or race, anything. It's just that you couldn't hire that business to put forward a message that Ms. Smith disagreed with. And so that's the distinction, and it's something where our public accommodations laws don't always recognize that level of nuance. But even in the 303 Creative decision, it was funny. The court cited a British High Court decision. So from Great Britain,
really,
where in 2018, where Great Britain's High Court recognized that there's a big difference between saying I'm not going to sell a hamburger to a gay person versus saying I'm not going to go out and I'm not going to allow my services to be used to promote same-sex marriage.
Right.
Even in Great Britain, which has much weaker free speech protections than we do, even they had recognized this previously. And so this is something where the media was trying to say, oh, it's a horrible strike against LGBT rights, and you're sitting there going, are you kidding me? No, it just means you can't force somebody to convey your message, which is something we had always again held to be true in this country, but it's become that right had been weakened, that fundamental right of everyone had been weakened because of various court decisions and overbearing bureaucrats and legislatures. So now this does protect us a lot more. I will say, Bob, and you also alluded to something, the DEI in corporate America. There was another case that came down same week as 303 Creative called Groff. And that Groff case strengthened the rights of employees when claiming against religious discrimination in the workplace.
Yeah.
So you start putting some of these decisions together. I mean, we have a case right now where a gentleman he expressed his discontent with his gigantic Fortune 500 companies really use of the rainbow flag pretty much everywhere, and they asked for comments. Well, he gave them a comment, and they didn't like his comment, so they fired him.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, sincere religious objection.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, this particular employer is an aluminum manufacturer. This isn't Disney we're talking about. It's an aluminum manufacturer.
Yeah.
Well, they want to be able to use the rainbow flag.
It's going to be really interesting.
That's the sort of thing we're dealing with.
It's going to be really interesting to see where this goes. I think that the 303 Creative at least gives people of religious belief or, free speech advocates a foothold now to say, well, wait a minute, why do I have to do this? And start questioning these things. And I've heard people just asking me, about like public accommodations laws and the corporate influence that's going on today about, well, do I have to do this? Well, I think it's still to be determined. I think there's now a hope for some of those people who are getting a little tired of some of these things that maybe some people feel it's gone a little too far. Peter, we got to jump. Unfortunately, they're telling me time's up. It's 20 after, so I have to run. Thank you so much. This is very informative, and we'll keep talking about this. And who knows? Let's see where the future takes us, because I don't think we've seen the end of this issue.
Well, and real quick, Bob, this is going to help us in fighting the anti-pregnancy center bill that Governor Pritzker's promised to sign. This only reinforces the precedents we were going to use to attack that bill soon to become law anyway.
Good.
So looking forward to it.
Right, we definitely look forward to that filing. Yes, I can't wait for that one. Peter, thanks so much for your help, and thanks for the very thorough, clear explanations of what's going on. Take care.
Take care. Thanks, Bob. This
is Bob Gilligan with the Catholic Conference. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're going to switch gears here. We're going to talk about the scholarship tax credit. We're going to talk to Tammy Karam of Kingswood Academy and her experience with this program and what it's done for her school and how we hope to continue to be able to save it. Don't go away, everybody. We'll be right back.
Young adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship programs provide a free opportunity for young adults to spend time with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youth aged 9 through 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports every relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that can help young adults build confidence and enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. To learn more, visit CatholicCharities.net or call 312-655-7970 in Cook County and 847-782-4224 in Lake County. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
Our school communities provide students with academic excellence and character education in a supportive and stable learning environment. Come see for yourself. Visit archchicago.org/findaschool.
Catholic Charities' Family Self-Sufficiency Program has assisted thousands of single parents who are working to become more self-sufficient through education and employment opportunities. Our experienced case managers accompany participants for up to 5 years on their journey to identify, address, and break down barriers to improving their quality of life and achieving meaningful goals for themselves and for their families. Professional, compassionate assistance is offered in a safe and trusting environment as participants develop the skills needed to become financially stable and able to support themselves. Every achievement starts with a decision to try. To learn more about Catholic Charities' Family Self-Sufficiency Program, call 847-782-4233 or visit CatholicCharities.net. Welcome back, everybody. We're back on the air here. Thanks for listening or watching the program here this morning, and our gratitude goes to Peter Breen from the Thomas More Society talking to us about the 303 Creative Supreme Court decision. And as I said before the break, we are going to switch gears now, and we'll come back home, I guess, here to Illinois and talk about one of the issues we've been involved with, this little program called the Scholarship Tax Credit. And with us, we hope, we have Tammy Karam, who is the marketing director for Kingswood Academy. And there she is through the magic of whatever this is, innovation technology. Tammy's with us. Tammy, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Can you hear me okay? Sounds like you can.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So first of all, before we get into the scholarship tax credit and all the trials and tribulations we've been through with that, tell us a little bit about Kingswood. Where are you guys and what the school is like? How many kids you got on scholarship?
Yes. So Kingswood Academy is located in Darien, which is just on those western suburb line. So we're almost hit that line of Cook and DuPage County. It's a small independent school, going into its 27th year. So an interesting fact with Kingswood is we are recognized by the Joliet Diocese, but we are independent, which means we have no funding from a parish, nor do we get diocesan funding. So it's strictly self-funded through our tuition and fundraising opportunities. And it's a smaller school. This next school year, we're going to be at about 150 students, which is a very good amount for us. We're a school that caps class sizes smaller. So you're going to see most classes under 20. We're a 14-to-1 ratio right now. But something that drew our family to Kingswood, we have 4 children, is that it's a classically based school, which means that there's no computers, which is a big shock for many families and many students sometimes that transfer into us. but it really does actually fit a great niche of a community that we have seemed to hit, which is an immigrant community. So we have a lot of immigrant families who come in. And when it comes to their students being on technology, it's new for them and difficult to navigate and to help them. So our students are reading, writing, all on paper, pencil. We use a lot of good backpacks because they're bringing books back and forth to school every day.
We could do a whole segment on technology, and I'm a big fan of that approach. I think we have too much technology at too early an age, but that's a whole other subject matter. It's refreshing to hear that. So I know through since the program, you've been involved with this for a couple of years now. Tammy's been down to Springfield many times and talked to many lawmakers. We've had many wonderful experiences together. Tell us a little bit about the Scholarship Tax Credit Program, what it's meant to Kingswood, the viability of the school, and that kind of thing. And you have quite a number of kids on scholarship now.
Yes, we can go up to 32. I think was our largest amount at one
That's a
year. So this year, right now, we have 17 funded for a school of 150. That's quite a few, and we obviously still have many more on the list that we're trying to get donors in. So it would be a total of about $138,000 that we would be bringing into the school if everybody gets funded off of our list. So again, a unique part to our list is that it has really brought in new families and immigrant families that are new here, and it gives them the opportunity to choose something that's more viable for their family, something that they find more success for their students. We have a lot of ESL students, which I think is something that people don't realize with a scholarship. I think a lot of people assume it's just students that have already attended the school and you're funding them as if you would have funded them through your financial aid already. Whereas for Kingswood, it's been able to bring in new families. The word of mouth through the immigrant population spreads pretty fast. And so when they know that this is an opportunity for their student and they find the success of their students from other friends, it just has grown.
It's word of mouth. It's fascinating, too, that I know because some of the parents that you've brought down to Springfield along with their children are immigrant families, and they're excellent personification, representatives of what the program can be and what it can do for immigrant families trying to, like you said, kind of acclimate themselves to the culture, to the customs here, and how the lack of technology, I think it really helps those families grow through what they're not only what they're learning, but I also think schools like Kingswood and many other schools out there, Catholic schools, is the moral, the character development it comes through. The kids are very polite. They treat adults well. They come across very well in those situations. I think that's where we really shine. And not that there are good public schools doing that as well, but I think that in particular, I've noticed the kids from your school very well behaved. They're very nice. They're courteous. They come up, shake your hand. It's really nice to see that sort of that development going on. Going back to the Scholarship Tax Credit Program. So for Kingswood, it's very important out there. So what's been kind of some of your experience in dealing with the advocacy efforts out there? I know some go better than others, but what do you think? What should be the message to people out there who need to further understand about the Scholarship Tax Credit Program? What do you think could sell this program more so than we've been doing?
Well, I mean, I think there's always kind of those misunderstandings amongst the community. Right. I think first we need to do a better job of actually promoting it and getting it out there. I think those of us who use it or work in schools or have been recipients of it or donors of it are very familiar with it. But again and again, I get with families and people that are just not familiar with it. So I think, again, pushing the word out of what it is, and that people have the ability to help private schools fund low-income families. I think that's a big thing, is that it's a low-income family. For me, I grew up, lower middle class. My husband is an immigrant himself, came from Lebanon with nothing. And so often those low-income families that come here with children or have children here early on, they just don't have the range of possibilities for their students. And as we all know, education is just the biggest foundation for achievement for these students to succeed in anything that they do, whether it's a trade or they go on to university. This foundational education in those K through 12 grade level is so vital and so important. And our low income families are the most vulnerable. They are the most disadvantaged. And this program actually steps in and allows these families to make a choice that is a better choice for them. A lot of people think that the Invest in Kids Act is a anti-public school effort. And I grew up in public schools, actually. So I was born and raised in public schools. And I would definitely say that that's not it. And that there's a sector for every student. And that's the whole point, is that each school caters to different needs for each student, and that we should give these opportunities, and that families that are well off, whether they're upper middle class or wealthy, that they can afford the tuition or the change of schools, or on that note, the families that can afford living in a more affluential area where the public schools are just better. I think that that's an honest truth that we need to talk about, that public school funding is not equal across the board. And therefore, public schools are not equal across the board. I see it here locally. We have a high school that is two high schools, Hinsdale South and Hinsdale Central, that are in the same school district, but they offer different classes. And it happens to be that the school with the lower economic base offers less opportunity. They have less honors classes, less AP classes. More students are not offered the classes that they have applied for, versus the school that is in more affluential area. And so something like, for those students, they would then have the opportunity for low-income families to apply to maybe a private school in the area that does offer those honors and AP classes for those students to get them ahead. And people sometimes miss that scope of that, and that we are trying to bridge that gap, that public school is not there yet, right? That sometimes we just can't meet all the needs in all the different communities. So why not now give an opportunity for these low-income families to have that need met?
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other point too is that problem that you used in explaining like the different dynamics between Hinsdale Central and Hinsdale South, that's going to exist whether the scholarship tax program exists or it doesn't exist. I mean, that program that problem has been going on for a long time, and it will probably continue to happen. But the scholarship tax credit program, I think if you take that program away, it just exacerbates that problem, makes it worse.
Right.
And I think that's the point that we've been trying to make, is that, look, we're not here to advocate that every child goes to a Catholic school or a non-public school. That's not the purpose of this program. That's not what we've ever said. But what we have been saying is that the fact of the matter is that for certain parents, this is an option for them that is not being provided by their public school system. And as you and I have found out, oftentimes it can be for the craziest reason. A lot of what we hear, though, is that parents like the program. They like having the option to send their kids to a non-public school. What we often hear, especially in Chicago, is that the perception is that the school is safer, or it's a safer environment. I'm not sure if the neighborhood's safer, but there is a safer environment in the school. And parents seem to really like that. And what I've read is that in the first couple years of a program, that seems to be the reason that's most cited, is safety of students, the perception of safety. And then as the program matures, you start hearing parents say more and more, yes, it is the academics, the student does seem to be doing a little better, or that kind of thing, which shows me that for some students that they need to feel safer in order to learn better. But that's not the case for every student. And I think that's part of what the messages we like to send to the public, is that we're not a threat to the public schools per se. This program, what is it? The max is $75 million. I mean, the public schools are now at, is it 9.2 billion? I think it's 9.2 billion. I had to look it up recently. And so we're not trying to be a threat to anybody, but we're all trying to say is that for many parents, this is the best option for them out there. This is not going to hurt the public school. It doesn't. One of the other messages I think we've been pretty effective in this is saying that if this program goes away, it doesn't mean that there's $75 million to the public schools. They don't all get that money. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. But I know we still hear it, but it's been pretty frustrating trying to get that message out. So here we are. What is this, July 17th or something like that? And so it looks like we're going back to veto session. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of talk, that kind of thing. I agree with you. It will be interesting to see. We have some programs, some plans on the way to do exactly what you just said, is to try to get the word out more. I think we're going to try to be a lot more aggressive in terms of our public communications and explaining some of the things that you've been saying, which is that we need to get the parents out there, the kids out there, and explain the value of this program to them. How do you see the next couple of months? I know school returns, August or so?
August 23rd, birthday of school.
Yeah, so you guys are coming back pretty soon. You're starting to talk to the parents, I take it, about this and starting to get that word out that the importance of this is like, it looks like the decision will be made in the veto session, whether it continues or not. What do you sense from the parents? Are they optimistic? Are they scared? Are they pessimistic? Or what's the mindset of the parents and the school community out at Kingswood?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge fear. I think what people haven't realized also is that these families that have children that are already in the program, there's a fear of they've found such great success in the program, and then they have younger siblings who have not come into the school age yet, and they want the same opportunity for those children that are not in the program yet. I know that there's been talk amongst the legislators about somehow finding some sort of stopgap in the essence of continuing the program for those who are already in it and then ending it at that point, some sort of fade out program. And I really think that's a disservice to the families and the whole communities, because what it is now saying is that this student gets the opportunity, but their sibling isn't worthy of that opportunity.
That's crazy.
So it's, and I think families are very fearful, families that have children that aren't there yet. As well as we have families that are in that junior high transitional area. So they're hoping for better opportunities in high school. And, our school stretches, and we pull students from, over an hour away actually is the radius that kids come from. So we definitely have kids coming from Chicago, closer to the inner city, as well as in rural areas. But those kids that are coming from Chicago have some different opportunities in high school selective. They can actually put in, they test in and they can do some selection for high school, because Chicago realizes that it's important for different options for high school for students. But the students that are coming from the more rural areas will not have those options. They don't get to choose another school or test into other possibilities. And I think, there's those dynamics that I think the CPS already identifies that not every school works for every student, because they do the high school selective enrollment, where the students get to choose potentially moving different schools than what their local school is for their district, where the rural kids don't have those opportunities. They have one high school, and maybe that's one small high school that doesn't, again, have those opportunities. And I think parents now are fearful because they want all those opportunities for their students. So I think there's a lot of fear amongst parents, and they often don't know what to do. Again, Kingswood being a little bit unique with it being an immigrant population, when I've taken those families down to Springfield, they are shocked they can even talk to their legislators. They come from countries that is not how it works. And so they still, even though I've taken them down, they still fear that confrontation, or could something happen to them, if they speak up. Yeah. And it's often that we need to give them the platform to talk and tell their stories, because they're absolutely amazing stories. Our family that actually received our first scholarships this year, they also just received their green cards this year. And I just think that's an amazing opportunity, as well as I have a Polish immigrant family who needed the scholarship for 2 years, but now is working, and they no longer qualify, which exactly should do this program. So it gives them that foot up, and they are so grateful that their daughter was given this opportunity when they were in need, and they no longer need it. And actually, we've now hired one of the parents that now works at our school. So it's just great opportunities, and I think everybody's afraid of them not being there anymore, and what's going to happen once those opportunities are gone.
We need to turn that fear into action, and I know you're doing that, and I know you'll continue to do it. I am cautiously optimistic about our chances. I know it's difficult. The political winds are definitely, they just seem to keep coming at us. But we never give up. We have a good story to tell. We have right on our side, and I think eventually we're going to prevail. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but I think I know we're up for it. And I think if you just get a little bit more, we're going to get a lot more aggressive and getting that public message out there. And I think once we do, I think we'll pick up more support in the public, which will help us hopefully in the veto session and get this thing done. Tammy, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great to see you again.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll talk and see each other soon. Thanks.
Thank you so much for bringing light to this topic.
We're going to keep doing it. We'll keep doing it until we get it done. Tammy Karam from Kingswood Academy, thanks for joining us. And don't go away, everybody. We'll be right back. We're going to switch gears here in a second. When we come back, we'll be talking with Ralph Rivera. He is with the Illinois Right to Life Citizens Action. I don't know what it is. We'll ask him what his title is when he gets on here. He's going to be talking to us about another development in Springfield called physician-assisted suicide and what we're doing about it. Don't go away. We're right back.
Community is core to Catholic Charity's founding mission. For more than 100 years, we have met people and families where they are, serving anyone in need, regardless of their faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. As our world absorbs the economic, political, and social aftershocks of the pandemic, 50% or more of the 6 million people living in Cook and Lake counties have little or no savings. They are a paycheck away from zero. We are deeply grateful to everyone in the Catholic Charities community who partners with us to alleviate the suffering of the people we serve and offer them a better path forward. We are witnessing a message of mercy and hope to a world very much in need. Learn more at CatholicCharities.net.
This is year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Catholic Charities Refugee Resettlement Program has been especially busy this year, assisting individuals and families who have fled dangerous situations in their homeland, including Afghanistan and the Ukraine. The Refugee Resettlement Team helps with everything they need to start to rebuild their lives in a new country, including housing, employment, clothing, food, English classes, and referrals for legal and immigration services. The refugees are tremendously grateful for the compassion and practical help they're receiving, and they're giving back and helping each other plan for a brighter, safer future. Volunteer opportunities are currently available for those who would like to be family mentors and tutors so children and adults can practice English. To learn more about these rewarding opportunities, call 312-655-7096. That's 312-655-7096.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, and thank you for listening and watching our program here today. Let's now jump to our next topic. We're going to be talking with Ralph Rivera. Ralph is with, you have to tell me, Ralph, which organization are you with today?
I'm with Illinois Right to Life Action.
There you go. That's the right answer. I knew that. It doesn't have it on my notes, so I don't know. Illinois Right to Life Action. Right. Let's just go with that. So, Ralph, tell us a little bit about, this is an issue we've talked about on this program before many times, mostly with national people because it was coming, it was in other states and what was going on. But why don't we just sort of start with here in Illinois? Let's talk about the issue per se. Let's define what it is. Physician-assisted suicide is blank. Go, define it.
All right. It is helping a patient commit suicide by giving them a prescription that's a lethal dose. And so there are 10 states that have this, and the District of Columbia, and they have similar points to this. And of course, Illinois Right to Life Action is opposed to someone taking their life in suicide or assisting someone to do the same. So that's our bottom line.
And it's generally doctors. It just allows doctors to do it, right? Doctors. Well, we should say there's no bill introduced yet in Illinois. We know there's one coming, so we're acting on what has happened in other states. But it's generally physicians and maybe some physicians' assistants, right? And that's the other, could be.
I would not be surprised if we see physician's assistants and advanced practice nurses do that, since they're doing a lot of what doctors are doing now in this state.
Right. And the proponents don't call it physician-assisted suicide. They use a nice term. It's called MAID, M-A-I-D. And they say that stands for medical aid in dying. So we're just trying to help you along. We're providing options to you at the end of life. That's kind of where what I hear them saying mostly. It's not, it's just an option we're trying to provide to people. So that's the issue per se. What's going on in Illinois? What can people? What's the scuttlebutt here?
Well, what we learned at the end of the spring session in May was that there was an effort to introduce an assisted suicide bill. That didn't materialize, but it tells us a strong possibility that in what's called the veto session, it's a fall session, they will introduce such a bill. So we have been working with the churches, the Right to Life groups, the disability groups. Disability groups have great concerns that this will go after them because of what they consider the opposition, if you will, consider what quality of life. And they have given a number of examples. So we're working with a whole coalition of people who are very concerned about this.
Let's talk a little bit about what's gone on in other states, why people want this option. I don't know if you're up to speed on this, but in Oregon, that I think they've done actually studies on there about why people choose this option. And what are some of? Do you recall some of the reasons that they opt for this?
I do. I have a list in front of me. So they asked the people in Oregon who wanted to have assisted suicide, what are the key things? What are the reasons? And the top reason was loss of autonomy. Second, decreased ability to engage in enjoyable activities, a loss of dignity, becoming a burden on others. Notice I haven't even talked about pain. They use this a lot. Pain is way down there. It is losing control of bodily function. So it is a situation of I'm afraid of this. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's their main concern. So if we believe that when patients are concerned about these things, if we work with them, if doctors and families and agencies work with those patients, we can help alleviate a lot of this.
Right. And that's actually the heart of their argument, which is they need MAID in order to help people end their lives when they feel they're a burden upon another person. That's not a legitimate justification for somebody ending their lives when they feel that they're no longer, they just can't do what they used to do. Well, I can't do what I used to do. I mean, I wish I could still run 20 miles. I can't. But I mean, it's a flippant response. But there's some truth to that this is the justification given, and you so eloquently pointed out is that they will often say because they alleviate pain and suffering at the end of life. We have palliative care centers, we have hospice organizations that they can treat that right now. So that's not a real reason for changing the law to allow people for this option. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit too is if you're familiar with, talk a little bit about the suicide issue right now in the United States and how this increases that problem.
Right. There's a concern that there's would be suicide contagion.
Right.
In states like Oregon, where they legalize it for certain people, they've seen the suicide rate go up more than nationally. So there's some information that we would see if this state allows it, other people will think about it. And they may say, well, then it's okay to do. It's interesting. I put together some information on our state legislature, and they have, over the years, passed legislation to deal with suicide prevention.
Right.
For police officers, for students, 2 years ago, they passed a law without any opposition. Everybody voted for it that said if you have in a public school, if you have a student ID that you give to students, on the back of that ID, you have to put a national suicide prevention hotline or a local hotline, because the General Assembly, these legislators say, this is important that we prevent students from thinking about this. And so what's the message? If you pass something like this, you're saying, well, it could be okay.
Yeah.
And they passed a number of bills like this.
Didn't they just pass the 988? You can call 988. It's a suicide hotline now, 988. Right. If you dial 988 and you feel like you are going to do something to harm yourself, there are people that will, on the other end of that line, that will help you. So, yeah, you're right. It's all they've done a number of things to help address that situation when people feel that they just have no options.
Right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, the suicide contagion thing is real, and if people are interested, you should look up the statistics on suicide in the United States right now. It's just shocking. I know in Chicago in particular and all across the country, we hear about homicides, and that is a horrible, horrible thing as well. But the raw numbers are just staggering. I off the top of my head, I mean, number of homicides is around 15,000 in the United States. And the number of suicides is like 4 times that. It's in the 50,000 range. And the number of people that end their own lives right now is alarming. And I think to your point is if you make this legal as an option, that just leads to more of it. And I hope that's not what we want as a society, to give people the thinking that this is going to cure their problem in any way. Ralph, we got about 5 or 6 minutes, but I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Canada right now and in those states that have it. How, what we've been saying is that these safeguards become barriers. The safeguards that are presented in the original legislation, over time, they just wear away and they become barriers to assisted suicide. You want to talk at all about that?
Sure. So it's called safeguards become obstacles for those proponents. They say, in order to pass a bill, and I've seen this on other bills, they need 60 votes in the House and 30 in the Senate, and they do whatever it takes to get that 60. And sometimes it's just 60 votes. Yeah. But as soon as they get the bill into law, they say, wow, we gave them all these safeguards. It doesn't do what we want. So they start to peel away the protections, in this case, for patients. And as you mentioned in Canada, it was supposed to be you're terminally ill and you're going to die within 6 months, which, by the way, is studies have shown you can't predict that too well. You can say, how many of us, and I have examples of that, where someone was given like, you're going to die within 6 months. And 3 years later, they're still functioning quite well.
Yep.
So you can't rely on that. But secondly, in Canada, they're saying, you don't need to be terminally ill. You could just not like your life. And that's the danger that we see. That's the protection is, you just have to be terminally ill in 6 months. Then they find out, that's an obstacle. So we'll get rid of that.
Yep. Exactly. It's a big problem. I mean, there's some horror stories going on in Canada right now with individuals seeking MAID or assisted suicide pills to end their lives because they couldn't get adequate housing, because they couldn't get their prescriptions filled, that sort of thing. And from what we read, Canada has a real problem right now. I read the other day that 3.3% of all deaths right now in Canada are suicides, and they think that this is a large part of the assisted suicide problem is exacerbating suicide in Canada. I don't think I got that stat exactly right. I think I have to go back and check that. I get so much of this information, but one of the other there's a lot of issues out there that I think are good policy arguments against why we should do that. What's your sense of where the General Assembly is right now? It seems like to me that this hasn't been talked about in the media really at all. But what's your sense of where the public is and where the media is, right, or the General Assembly?
We haven't done a full roll call, but we've done a good one, and we've seen that we get support on what our concerns are from Democrats and Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, a number we talked to say, gee, I haven't even heard about this.
Yeah, right.
So what are we rushing this for? Let's look into this, delve into this, take some time. So to do this, they were going to try to do this within the last 3 weeks of the spring session in May. Now they would try to do this for a 2-week session in the veto session. That's the fall session starting in October. I think a lot of legislators, I had one senator said, oh, I'm a no. What are we rushing for? Don't even know what this is about. And I think there's a lot of those. So I'm hopeful that and we're going to be working with these legislators, giving them a sheet about what they've done on suicide prevention, another sheet on the dangers and so forth, to educate them. So they may say when they come back in the fall, I don't want to do this. There's too many problems with this.
As Ralph indicated, I would urge all listeners and people watching this to go to a website. It's called, there's actually 2 very good websites. One of them is Illinois-based. The other one is more nationally. But the Illinois coalition is called StopAssistedSuicideIllinois.org. It's those words all together, StopAssistedSuicideIllinois.org. And on there, you can go for information about the issue, some of the issues that Ralph's pointing out, who's involved in the coalition. It's a nice coalition that's starting to form. We seem to have more and more interest from physicians in particular who are very concerned about this. So there's also kind of an offshoot effort called Physicians Against Assisted Suicide Illinois that's starting. On the coalition, you'll have doctors and nurses. As Ralph indicated, you have the pro-life groups, obviously, concerned about the moral issue. We have a lot of hospitals are very concerned about this. We also have, as Ralph indicated, some developmental disability groups very concerned about the ramifications of this. And we're also working on hospice and palliative care groups. I think we're going to have some of them come aboard fairly soon, as well as some veterans organizations. As we were talking about earlier, the prevalence of suicide amongst veterans is alarming. And we hope to have some of those people in our coalition as well. So Stop Assisted Suicide Illinois is the state group. And also the national group is Patients' Rights Action Fund. Is it Patients' Rights Action is the name of the organization. If you Google that, there's a lot of good information that Patients' Rights Action puts out. So I'd highly recommend people go to that website as well. Ralph, anything else? What did I miss?
Just to, I'd ask that your listeners call their legislators, voice your opinion. That's important. I hear from legislators say, oh, yes,
Absolutely.
I've been getting a number of calls. That's what we do. You're our proxy vote. If you call and say, please don't do this, think about this. This is not what I would like as your constituent. It can work, and it's very helpful.
And if you need help finding your legislator, Ralph's organization has a very good website. We do as well, www.ilcatholic.org. There's your find your legislator icon on there. Illinois Right. I always mess up this. Illinois Right to Life Action. Also
Right.
has a lot of information available as well. So I would urge people to, as Ralph said, please call your state rep, state senator. They need to hear from you because, as Ralph said, it's the best voice that we have. They know what we're going to say, but when we hear from the general public, that's the best way to do it. Ralph, thanks so much for taking some time today on this bright Monday morning. We'll be talking soon about this, and we're going to stay on top of this till for quite a while. I think this is going to be a long slog. We're going to be doing this issue for quite a while. Ralph, thanks for taking some time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thanks, everyone.
Great. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference. Thanks for taking some time and watching or listening to our program this morning. We hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful week here. Enjoy the beautiful weather in this month of July. We will be back, I hope, on the third Monday in the month of August. And I do not have that date off the top of my head, but I do know it's the third Monday in the month of August. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference. Once again, thank you for listening and thank you for watching.